I spoke to some family friends. Luckily, I came across one or two people in my immediate vicinity who had taken the EB5 route or who got some of their family members to take the EB5 route at some point of time in the past couple of years. A lot of people complained that their attorneys were not very responsive. I was particularly focused on finding an attorney who not only had an intricate knowledge of how the visa regulations work in the US, but also had a good sense of the situation that candidates from India usually face. Sam, you yourself, kind of introduced me to Anahita, who is one of the attorneys that, kind of been associated with in the past. I had a conversation with Anahita to understand where she comes from, what's her background, what is she trying to do, or how she goes about the process. And then I also read a lot of online reviews for Anahita. Usually, online reviews have a tendency to be doctored and fabricated at times as well, especially, like a new lawyer or a new doctor or some such person who's trying to launch a practice. But I came across reviews about Anahita from 2018, 2019, and I recognized that, look, if across several years, you find testimonies of the expertise of a lawyer from several people, it kind of adds up to, a certain level of credibility. After having gone through this experience of, preparing my application, being advised by her, I think all of those reviews were absolutely on point, always available, reachable through WhatsApp. I can just pick up the phone and call her, whether it's a weekend, whether it's a weekday. She would, just come back to me with any requirements of any specific documents that were missing. She was happy to, kind of walk us through pitfalls that we would face in terms of sourcing our funds from different areas. And these things are complicated because obviously the goal here is to not just get the green card, but also at the same time prepare a very spotless application that is easy for the USCIS officials to understand and approve. I formally hired Anahita by signing the agreement with her and, kind of transferring the first installment of the fee. And I would say, given that this entire process has concluded on 7th or 8th of February 2023, I would say it took approximately 2.5 months. I will say that the process kind of, involves me looking at a number of projects that are, out there for EB5 investors to invest in. And at the same time, also handling the back office part of it, which is to say, arranging all the documentation that is required by USCIS, making sure that all my sources of funds are in order, making sure that I am sourcing any additional funds that I would be needing from the right channels with the appropriate level of documentation, which obviously, requires a lot of input from the attorney. The first thing that is important here is the attorney should be very experienced. You do not want to hire an attorney who's just like a new kid off the block starting out in EB5, because the rules and regulations around EB5 are still developing. The government keeps, thinking about new regulations to bring in place. Recently, I've heard about a substantial increase in the fees that people will end up paying if they file for an EB5. So you want somebody who's been through several EB5 cases, preferably for applicants that come from your region. And in Anahita's case, she has handled a lot of cases from India. So she knew that, look, if you're sourcing funds from India, a lot of times there is not a lot of paperwork available. People have family assets like land or property, which would have been acquired like 40, 50 years ago. And sourcing the paperwork for all of that is just very difficult. So my first advice is make sure that the attorney is very experienced. Number two, make sure that the attorney is very communicative. Now, unfortunately, these are easy things to say, but for somebody who is, like an immigrant in the US who hasn't been around for a while, it's very difficult to know which attorney is good, which attorney is not. And that's where, these online reviews are helpful, especially if those reviews go back several years, because that gives you a sense of how, that kind of gives you like this seems like someone who's reliable and who will actually help me through this process. And then, as you start working with the person, you will start getting a sense of how communicative they are in terms of how willingly they respond to your messages, how easy it is or difficult it is for you to get on a call with them and sort through any problems that you might be facing. That's my recommendation.